Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spiritual American. My name is Dr. Ann O'Hare, and I'm your host. And today, as you see, we have a special guest. So, this is my husband, Ken, who I have
Mhm.
mentioned in the podcast several times. Ken is a Raj Yogi practitioner, meditation practitioner for over 40 years. He's been practicing this meditation and studying. So I brought him in. Today, the topic is grief and hope. And it's a very powerful topic for many. And we're going to share our experiences and some spiritual principles as well. But before we get started, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. As you know, that helps YouTube get our algorithm going so the content can go out to more people. And please consider sharing with your friends and family as well. So, both of us have our own experiences with grief and with family members passing and things like that. And Ken, especially, because he was very young when his mom passed. So, I'm going to let him share a little bit about that first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I was about 16 when she died in childbirth. The thing about it was that I was there when she was being transported to the hospital because she was doing this delivery at home, which is kind of common in that part of the world. And you see, everyone was sad, and I was feeling that, and I was praying, and that she should survive it, And the thing is that when she was pronounced on arrival that she had passed, I was really, I didn't know what to think. It was a shock. But one thing I distinctly remember, and that is that she was always there with us. Like, for some reason, I couldn't think of her as gone. And for many, many years after, I felt like she was around helping us, helping the family. And I, being the eldest, I somehow felt that, we you couldn't do it without help. Everything was overwhelming in terms of taking care of your siblings, and then seeing your father trying to manage without her, which was very difficult for him. Anyhow, one thing that because of that feeling like she was always there in my heart, I always felt connected. And for some reason, I never really felt as if like I'm grieving because I always felt she was present. So I don't know where that came from, but looking back, I am so grateful that even on to now, I still feel somehow, and this is after meditation and yoga and understanding consciousness, knowing that consciousness cannot die. But I mean, at that time, I didn't have that awareness. But I'm glad that I had that way of connecting with her because I still have a heart that is filled with love whenever the image of her or the memory of her comes up. So I can't say, like I'm blaming God for taking her
Mm.
or that, because I look at how we all grow up and how life turned out. And these are many, many years after now. This is like, what, 60 years or so, 50 years? No, 40 something years since. And to see how everything turned out. So it seems like there was some blessing,
Mm.
looking back at that. So why I'm mentioning that, because sometimes we think we have to grieve, or sometimes we think it's not normal to, express hurt and pain. But I'm telling you truly how I felt, and I'm grateful that that is there, you know?
So, one of the principles that Ken's talking about here is the spiritual principle is that the soul doesn't die. The soul doesn't die. You didn't know that really when this
Mm,
happened, but you felt that she was still there. And I had this similar experience. My mother passed about 3 years ago, and we were very close my whole life. But I felt I was working on doing meditation, and I had the spiritual knowledge. So I guess that was helping me even when she was still alive. Like she had cancer and so forth. So we knew she was going to go. That's helpful too, by the way. When you know that they're going
Yeah.
to go, you have time to
Yeah.
prepare. But when I got up at the memorial for mom, and all I could feel, I felt two things. I felt gratitude, and I felt grateful for what I had received from her, grateful for her example, grateful for her
Right.
companionship. Everything was there. Like the gratitude was there. And the other thing that was similar to what you shared, Ken, was that I didn't feel like she was gone. It
Yeah.
was, and I said that to the family, in front of the family, like, I don't feel like she's gone. So I think that that's one principle that we can think about. First of all, the soul doesn't die. Second of all, there's some connection that death cannot touch between us. We have memories, we have experiences with others. And one other thing about grief, the way I think about grief from a spiritual sense, or anybody can think of whatever category you want to call it. But I feel that grief happens because the other person is taking up space in my consciousness. So imagine that I have whatever 1 acre of space in my consciousness.
Yeah.
And mom was taking up half of that acre of space, right? Or whatever amount of space she was taking up. Now, when she leaves, all of a sudden that space is empty.
Yeah.
And every one of us has an experience like that. I was just thinking that some people have people that die in their lives, and then they question the purpose of life anymore. They
Mm.
question, like, the deep life questions arise. I think part of the reason that that happens is because the loss that is felt is really in the self. Like you're feeling a loss within the self, and you're wondering what is the meaning of life. And then of course you were saying like blaming God or something. Like some people might go there, like, oh, why is God letting this happen? Or why did God let them go? Or there is no God. Like you hear people do
Yeah,
that,
they
right?
say that, or why me? And
Why me? There is no God. Like all different mechanisms come in, but there's a space that that person was occupying. And the person goes and the space is there. Of course, you're going to feel something.
yep.
I mean, there are people out there, I know I've talked to people who they feel grief or they feel sadness when people go. And then the people around them are getting impatient with them and saying, well, why aren't you over this by now? It's been 2 years or
Right.
whatever. That's really not fair because you are experiencing it. It's in your consciousness that that place is
Yeah,
there, that
that's a
space
very
is
good
there.
point. Yeah.
So what are we talking about here? This what can help us. It doesn't mean we're not saying you're not going to have any feelings. Of course we're going to have feelings. We wouldn't be human if we didn't have feelings. Of course we love the person, we're going to have feelings. But what can help us is a couple of things. One, they're not dead.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. And Ken was sharing when his sister passed, and he'll share a little bit about that. But at the memorial, he was sharing about the soul, right? And
Yeah.
people were coming up to you saying that that helped them, right?
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, she passed at the age about 54. She was, and she was diabetic, and she had sepsis, which eventually became system failure. Like
Mm.
she had multiple organ failure. She was on a vent, and then when I went back, she was on a vent, so she wasn't able to talk. But I held her hand, and I really felt like she
Was
like
okay to
it's like
go.
she was
Yeah.
okay, like she
Yeah.
wanted to go. When she passed, I there again I had this feeling that she was okay. And for me, like it's very difficult to think of someone gone into a bad place or like for some
Mm.
reason because well, by that time I was studying
Spiritual knowledge.
spirituality. So this thing about never dying, and also that we can't carry the people with us or the house or the money or whatever,
Mhm.
but we do carry memories of each other
Mm.
and the things that we learn from each other, the things that we exchange, so as if the relationship can actually be eternal in a way.
Yeah, death doesn't stop
It
that.
doesn't stop that. And even now in that culture is that for about 12 nights, a lot of people will come to your home and they will be singing spiritual songs and share a lot of knowledge about the soul. And I was really explaining about the soul and how every soul is unique. Their characteristic is formed by their experiences during the life. So our relationship with them and their relationship with us, if there is that feeling of contentment or gratitude or love or a feeling of, it's almost like you're allowing the soul to feel that there was a fulfillment, not
Hmm.
suffering. You're not leaving suffering behind. So that actually helped. I think many people were saying that, yes, because if you keep doing that, people can keep, if you want to pray for that soul. But I find sometimes if you have a pure feeling and love, that at some level we are connected, and at some level that reaches them, and there's some kind of an interaction that allows for your healing and their happy transition to
Yeah, because
where.
I was just thinking that I was watching some TV thing recently and they were talking about how people don't get to share how they really feel with people when they're alive. They share it at the memorial, right? Like you were just sharing.
Mm-hmm.
They spend 13 days talking about whatever. But what happens if you were standing in front of the person and you said, this is what you mean to me. And and you hear people say that, tell the person or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
right.
This is what you mean to me. That feeling of gratitude, like the feeling I had of gratitude for my mom, okay? I believe that that feeling reached her.
Yep.
That feel because I'm remembering her. I'm not having the feeling isolated. I'm having the feeling while I'm connected with her in my memory. And
Mm.
also understanding the impact that she had on my life
Yes,
and
yes.
me and on me. So
So she continued to live in you.
she's living. I know this sounds weird. This doesn't fill
Mm.
the space. Now, what we're talking about right now does not fill the space. But what it does is keeps us from going into despair, into fear, into
Right.
hopelessness, into blaming. It helps us from falling apart, like you said. It helps
Yeah.
keep us from falling apart. If I can think of the hopeful side of it, they're not really dead. I still remember. I'm grateful for the time. And even if you're still hurting, you can still bring that up.
Yes.
It doesn't require you to stop feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
You can still think, well, maybe they're still alive, and maybe I wish them well. Then you're turning it around from the hurt that I feel, you're actually turning it into a positive thing, like a good wish for them.
Yeah. Because if you are carrying that and there is this void within you, you you can't stand. How long can you keep on feeling that way? So then people turn to being a victim, like why God
Mhm.
made this happen, or it was their fault. They shouldn't have left me here or something.
Right.
And
They
if
get
you
angry at the person who
yeah,
left. And yeah.
right. And if you look at that way of thinking, how it damages or causes hurt or a sinking feeling, or you can even question life about that. You can even wonder what's the purpose to this whole thing.
Yeah.
But I've heard somebody said that you can't take anything physical with you, but you can take what you can pack in your heart. That was
Aw,
unique.
that's nice.
That which
Could you share a little bit about the book? Like,
yeah,
what is it called again?
is the name of it is called Erasing Death,
Erasing Death.
and it
Yeah.
was written by, there was a group of cardiologists and neurosurgeons, I think it is,
Mhm.
and they were investigating a way to preserve brain damage, preserve the brain, after a heart attack. So among the group that they mention in the book, some one or two dr- they had they
Near
drowned
drowning,
near
near
right.
drowning,
Their heart stopped, but they were able to revive them.
because they were cold.
Because they
They
were
were
cold.
cold.
Yeah, and the others were heart attack, and so you're trying to revive them, but what they were doing is slowly dropping their temperature. And
Well, what to explain, what they found was that, like, let's say somebody drowned in the ocean or something and it was cold, even if they were underwater for a long time, if they get them out, even if they're not breathing, and when they start to warm up the body, sometimes they were revivable
yeah,
because the coldness slowed down their metabolism and oxygen
oxygen
consumption
consumption,
so much that they
and
actually were able to save them. So they figured use the same principle for a heart
right,
attack. And they started physically lowering the temperature of the person who had the heart attack to preserve the
yeah,
heart tissue, heart muscle, and also
brain,
brain
yeah,
function.
right. So when they recovered, for those who recovered, they would go back and interview them and do their tests. And to their amazement, there were a few in that group, irrespective of their religious background, irrespective of whether they believe in religion or not. They were, they brought back a feeling, like a vision or a place that they were in of it was light, and it was pleasant, and some of them said they even maybe some loved ones, could be a grandmother or something, that came and they were our angel or something to that effect. Anyhow, what I'm trying to get at here is you might have heard also of situations where people might be going through a surgery, and for
Mm.
some point in time they felt like they were on the ceiling or in the looking down, but then they came back in before the surgery is finished or something,
Mm.
or they might have had problem with the heart, but everything came back to they were able to revive the person, and because people can that happens, your heart stop and they can restart it back or
Mhm.
so on. Anyhow, what I'm trying to get at is that consciousness never dies; it lives on, and it's not just an empty um, thing. It's like this: there is something that they can remember from that experience, and that is what baffled the doctors.
That they all
And
had like a similar
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can consider that in the process of grieving, that it is not the end, it's the journey, and that you can still do something for that person if you love them or if you're grateful for the part they play in your life. Why not use, like, transform your grief into a connection of love and gratitude and hope and a feeling that at any time they come up in your memory, always send love, always send some good energy. And it helps you to heal. And you never know. Maybe they even feel like they're being loved and they don't know where the feeling came from, but they feel it.
It's very beautiful. I hope that gave you something to think about. If some of you out there are feeling grief right now, my final thought is whatever you're feeling is okay. And that I hope that what we were discussing here about the eternal nature of the soul and the possibility of transforming some of the grief into something positive and something meaningful. I
Mm.
hope that really has touched the heart today. So we'll leave it there. Remember, our slogan is heal, empower, and serve. And I want to thank Ken for being with us today,
Mm.
special guest.
Thank you for inviting me.
And until next time,
Mm.
take care.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.